Hello, my name is Dakota, and this is a new series. We're going to be painting minis. The first one I have here that we're going to paint is a turtle. So I have the Explorer's Guide to Wildmount open next to me to look at the turtle, or the turtle as kind of a reference picture. And we're just going to go ahead and start painting. So I did already start this video and then I had camera problems. So I painted his head and started to paint his arm in flat olive green. You can kind of see it there. So I'm just gonna keep painting him in that color until I get all his skin covered. So I'm using a Testors brand paint. And I have a plethora of colors, and like I said, I'm just going to start with this flat olive green until I get all of his skin covered up as just kind of a base coat. And I think I'm going to paint him sort of like a painted turtle, so I'm going to add some reds and yellows to him because I want it to be realistic to both D&D and real life. So I mean, if you have snapping turtles and alligator turtles, sea turtles, painted turtles, why can't you have a painted turtle or a sea turtle or an alligator turtle? It makes sense to me. So that's how I'm going to go about this. So I'm going to make him a painted turtle. And this is a sorcerer turtle, hence the fire in his hands. So I think I'm going to paint the fire some sort of blue color. I'm not quite sure yet, but like I said, for now I'll just stick with his skin tone in this flat olive color. I'm no expert in painting, and I usually don't do the eyes of any of my minis. Maybe some of the bigger ones like the dragons, I'll do the eyes. But for stuff like this, I usually don't do the eyes because I don't just paint these to sit on a shelf and look realistic. I paint them to be played with, and when you're playing with them, you're just moving them around the board and you're not really paying attention to the fine details. So it doesn't really matter if the eyes are painted or not. It's just kind of a pop of color to the game to make it more fun, and an easy way to identify your token on the table. Okay, I think I got his arms finished. Paint his leg here. One of the minis that I really want to get is the Lizard Folk, but it's not out yet. So I settled for a turtle. And like I said, I have a bunch more to be painted. I do have a second turtle. Not sure if that's going to be in this video or a separate video. Not sure how I'm going to do that yet. But he definitely will be painted. He's also a sorcerer because, you know, most of these minis come in 2 packs. Okay, just about finished with his leg here. Now I'm just gonna kind of skip the toes because those are his claws, so those will be a different color. Most likely black seems like the most realistic color to paint those, so that's what I would do for those. Now, I imagine turtles as living in tribes, kind of like the Native Americans. So when I paint his clothes, there's probably going to be a lot of bright colors, like what the Native Americans might wear, kind of stuff like that. Because like I said, I imagine them living in tribes with elders and living in tents instead of a normal city or society. So that's how I'm going to be going about painting his clothes, which I think will tie into him being a painted turtle with all the different colors. Just getting close down to his claws now, and I think a little bit of his shell right here, the bottom of his shell, and then this tail is the last part of his skin. Now, this isn't the first mini I ever painted. I do have other ones, but I painted those before we painted this or started this channel. So obviously there's no videos of those, but maybe I'll show those in the future. Okay, it looks like he's just about done there. So there's all his skin, and he's already looking much cooler. Alright, so while he dries off, I'm just going to close up my paint and clean off my brush. And I find it easiest to work from a lowest layer to highest layer, kind of naturally, so you don't cover paint on other things you already painted. So I think I'm going to paint his undershell, and then I'll probably just do the back of his shell. So for his undershell, look at the book here. Can't really see his undershell, so I'm imagining it as a lighter yellow color. So I'm going to just look for a color that kind of resembles that, and I have a yellow color here. Oh no, that's flat brown. It kind of looks yellow, but you know what? I think flat brown will work through the bottle. For the most part, they usually have the same color, so it kind of looks like a yellow brown, so I'm going to use that. I haven't used my paints in a while, so my cap's a little stuck here, so I'm just going to try and open that up real quick. There it goes. Alright, shake that up. Alright, and here, kind of a yellow brown. It's called flat brown. I'm just going to use this to paint his undershell. Don't know if that's the proper term, but that's what I'm going to call it. Alright. from my experience with picking up turtles, that is a pretty realistic color for the bottom of their stomach. I've never picked up too many turtles, but this does look pretty realistic. Like I said, I'm gonna try and stay on the bottom of the shell just as much as possible. But since I haven't painted anything else around this yet, I'm not too worried about accidentally getting on it, because this is a lighter color, so it won't mess up things too much. And actually, I got it on the arm a little bit here, but I think that's fine because it adds a little bit of texture to the color. I might go back and add this color to his skin later on. I'm not quite sure yet, but his undershell is finished already. So we're just going to close that up, clean off our brush, and I'm just going to set that one aside so I know that that's the color I used already. I'll do that with just to kind of build up a palette here. Clean off my brush, and I will find a base color for his outer shell. I'm thinking a medium brown color, sort of like this one. Let me shake it up. Yeah, that looks like a pretty good color. This one is called flat dark brown. I have another brown here, which is gloss brown. I will stick with the flat brown because they already kind of look glossy anyways, but it also just depends on what kind of look you're going for. Again, just loosen that up, make sure it's shaked well. Alright, now I'm not sure how this is going to go on, so we'll find out. Oh, that is a very dark brown. That's okay though, because I'm going to come back with some other colors to make this look a little bit cooler and make him look like a painted turtle. It is, however, a very nice color, I think. Now that I have it spread out a little bit. And I got that just about finished up. This also looks like part of his shell here. I'll just paint that up. Oh, and there's a little bit more of his shell on this side of his satchel strap. And I am getting a little bit on that satchel strap, but I imagine this is the color I'm going to use for that later anyways. Kind of like a leather color. And I don't think it'll blend in too much once I add the other colors to the back of his shell. Okay, and that looks pretty good. I'm just gonna smooth out some of this excess paint here. And then we will let this dry and come back to it later. I'll set that off to the side. So we're using a lot of earthy tones, which makes sense because turtles have a lot of earthy colors. Alright, next I think I'm going to do this cloth. It looks like there's kind of two cloths on top of each other. There's this cloth here that goes along his backside. There's this kind of flap down in front of it, but I think I'm just going to paint them the same color. And I think that'll be pretty cool. So for that, I think I'm going to use another earthy color just for this part, because I think I want to do his cloak here in a teal color. Actually, I think I'll also do this kind of cloth down here also in a teal color, and I think that'll look pretty good. So let me find a good color for that. Okay, I don't really have, I have a light blue, I have teal, but it's metallic. I'm not really sure that would work too well, so I'm going to find a different color. You know what, I have this kind of baby blue that I think we're going to use. This is a gloss light blue, and I think that'll be a nice pop of color to this mini. Alright, got it cracked open there. I'm just going to start with this one around his waist and then see how it looks. If I like it, I might do it around the top cloak as well. It is a very nice color. It does look like something that the Native Americans would wear. But I think this has two separate pieces, and I have a nice pink color. So I'm going to do the back, the undercloth piece in blue, and then I think I'm going to try and use a pink color for that front kind of piece there. It is a nice bright blue, but it also looks like a pretty natural blue. Now, sometimes I paint the bottom here in a black color to make like a shadow, but for this mini I'm just going to paint it the same color as the cloth here. It doesn't really matter too much anyways, because you're not going to really ever see the bottom of the mini. So I'm just going to paint it the same color as the cloth. And you don't really have to paint it, but I will know that it's unpainted, and it will bother me that it's not painted. The only thing I don't really paint on minis is the bottom of the base, because it's going to get glued to the base plate anyways. I got a little bit of blue on his legs, so I'll go back in a little bit and patch that up. And this blue color actually matches pretty nice with the rest of the colors that I've already used. Now I believe the Tortle package is only online. That's why I'm using the Explorer's Guide to Wildmount, which has the Tortle in it. So there's a nice little picture there. He's not really wearing any clothes in the picture, so everything else that's on him, I'm pretty just gonna have to make up myself to something that is going to work for me, but seems pretty realistic for a Tortle to wear. Just gonna finish up the underside of this cloth, and then we will be finished with this cloth. Oops. Alright, got a little bit on his staff here, but the brown I want to use for that is pretty dark, actually probably the same brown as his shell, so it'll cover it up pretty easily. And that cloth is looking pretty good. Alright, so like I said, I think I want to do this kind of cloak around him also in a blue. Maybe I'm going to use a darker blue, but his back should be finished up now, so I'm going to go back and find some reds and yellows to put on the back of his shell to make him a painted Tortle. So I have this red here. Oh, that's a metallic red. Let's see. Here, another metallic red. How many metallic reds do I have? Here's a flat red. And it's a pretty bright red, so that'll be nice to add some pop of color. I'm going to grab a slightly smaller brush here. These paint brushes are also Testor, and I just have a couple different sizes. I don't need too many sizes because, like I said, I don't do the eyeballs, so I don't really need a super fine brush. For the most part, what I have, the two sizes I have are fine. The one I was just using was a 5-0, and this one is a 10-0. Alright, so let's get a little bit of red on his shell and see how that looks. There's really no rhyme or reason to how I'm going to do this, because every turtle is different. So I'm just going to start adding red to him. Just going to follow the shape of this. I believe these are called shoots or scoots, something like that. I think it's called a scoot. So I'm just going to go around the edges here, and it doesn't have to be perfect, it just is here to add some color. Now I think I'm just going to go around the edge of every single one and see how that looks. I think it'll give a very nice feeling. Now, some will be darker, some will be brighter, some will be thicker. Just depends on how you want to do it. Does not have to be perfect, because nature is not perfect. So for one of these, we don't have to be too perfect either. Just as long as it looks good, that's all that matters. As long as it's fun to play with, fun to paint. If you're not having fun painting it, then you're doing it wrong. I think that looks pretty good. Just got a couple more here to do. that looks pretty good. I think what I'm going to do now, just to lighten up the shell a little bit, I think we're going to try and use that same color I used for his undershell. But I'm also going to put a little bit of paint thinner so it goes on kind of like a wash. But I do have to let that red dry first. Don't know how it's going to turn out, but I saw a couple brown spots that I missed, so I'm just going to go grab my brown real quick and fix that up. This turtle, he is carrying a lot of bags with him. Like I said, he's a wizard, so I'm assuming those are all different types of component pouches. Like, he has different things in each one. But I imagine they're going to be painted pretty similarly. Maybe I'll use my other brown for that, some tans maybe. Alright, just dry off my brush. But for now, I think I'm going to hop onto his belt here. And I think I'm just going to do the belt in a flat black color. So let me just find that real quick. Alright, flat black. Make sure it's shaped up. Open it here. And we will paint his belt. So now I have to be really careful not to get it on the other colors because the black will be hard to cover up. So I'm just going to do this very gently and take my time on this part. Now he doesn't have belt in too many places. It's popping in and out between the bags. So I will have to just go around all the bags and just paint in his belt here. Alright, so there's that little section. Here's another little section here. Alright, here's, I believe this is the last little section of belt, if I remember right, just from turning it around and painting the other spots. Alright, and that is the last part of belt, so we're done with his belt already. Okay, I'm just going to keep this flat black aside though, just in case I decide to use it again. So depending on the menu that I'm painting, I like to keep a tight color palette. This one's already starting to get a little bit crazy, but that's okay because it's not nearly half of the paints I have. So okay, I got my pink here. Oh, it's actually gloss orange, but I think I'm going to stick with the orange because I think the orange will also work nice with this blue color here. Alright, just gotta get it open here. So it looks like a bright pink through the bottle, but the label says gloss orange, so we'll see how it looks. Like I said, I'm going to do this front panel here just to get a little bit of color variation in his clothing so you can tell that they are different layers. That is looking very nice already. You know, it actually looks nice lay the top of the blue. Kind of looks a little muddy or dirty, like he's used it. He's been wearing it through his travels. But I'm probably going to go over and do a second coat, or at least just try and cover up some of that blue, so that this orange becomes a little bit more vibrant. And there's just a tiny corner back here, so I just reach around and grab that. Get the border of this cloth. There's a little bit of blue that I'm going to have to go get back over there that I missed. And there is, I guess this is, sorry, I guess this is technically called a loincloth. Alright, so that looks very nice. Alright, so I'm going to go grab my blue and patch up that little area, but I think I'm ready to put blue on his shawl as well. So just add that over the palette, clean off my brush. This is just paint thinner in this bottle here, also Testor's brand. Alright, blue should be pretty easy to open. Oop, there's a little bubble there. I'm going to stick with my small brush just to get these little details that I missed. And I'm going to go back to my larger brush to paint his shawl. And then I'll probably jump back to the smaller brush again. So I'm just gonna clean this small brush off real quick. Grab my larger brush and paint his. And this will help make the mini look more aesthetically pleasing, because I've got the color in two places, up high and up low. And I'm just going to do all these little frills in the blue as well. I'll probably do those with my smaller brush. Now there's this little ring at the front of his shawl, so I'm not going to paint all the way up to it, just so that I can paint that ring. The ring is pretty flat, so it'll be hard to paint by itself, so I'll show you how I do that once I get to that. I'm just gonna go, oh, I put my finger in the paint there. Go back and do all these little frills. Being really careful around this shell here so I don't have to repaint his shell later. Patch up this spot right here where I have my finger. Alright, that's looking very nice. So I think I'm going to paint his satchel strap in black as well, since his shell is so dark and basically the same color as what I wanted to paint the strap as. We'll see. I think I actually like the shell like this, and I'm not going to do the wash, but we will see what happens here in just a moment. Just looking for a place to hold just in case that paint from my finger is still wet. Don't want to get it on any of the other parts that we've painted so far. Just about done with this cloak until I get that little clip on the front of his cloak painted. Now if I can just, okay, well I'm about to use this again, so just set it there, clean off my brush. Now I keep my paint thinner in an airtight container so it doesn't evaporate as fast, and then I can use it for multiple times. So you'll see that my paint thinner starts to get discolored pretty fast. Now for that little thing, I think I want to do a bronze. Originally I was thinking a gold, but I don't think they have too easy access to gold. Okay, I have brass, which will work as well, because for my mini, I'm going to be using it for my homebrew campaign. Ooh, it's a little chunky up there. For my homebrew campaign, and the turtles live on an isolated island, so I don't think they would have too much access to gold per se. I mean, so I think brass will work just as well. They're pretty similar colors. I'm going to grab my small brush, just dip it in the brass here, and then I'm just going to go around the circle there. So it was kind of like a ring, but now it kind of looks like a medallion the way I did that, and I actually like how that looks, so I'm going to keep it that way. And I'm not sure if this is a chain going around his neck or the edge of the cloak, so I think I'm just going to paint that with a silver to kind of look like a chain that his medallion is hanging on. We'll see. If it looks good, it looks good. If not, we can cover it up with the blue, but I think it'll look just fine. I believe I have silver. I just have to find it here. Flat aluminum. I do have an actual silver. Let's see. Metallic silver. So when my lids get stuck on, I just use a pair of and just put slight pressure so you don't deform your cap, and you can still get the cap off. It just gives you a little bit more leverage to loosen it up. And just if paint accidentally gets into threads or whatever, it'll dry up and kind of seal it closed. Alright, we'll grab the silver here and just kind of paint this chain piece. Alright, and this chain piece is just about done. Being very careful not to get it back on his head. And I got it on his head. I had to touch up his leg from earlier anyways. So I'm going to just close up that silver, clean off my brush again. Alright, so I think that's looking pretty good so far. We're getting pretty close. Just got the satchels. Finish up his cloak. We have his staff. And then we'll touch up his skin and we'll do the ground. I do like to do the ground on my minis. I think it adds a little bit more, again, character. Alright, so just looking for a good place to hold this so I don't put my finger in the paint again. Okay, I'm just going to touch up a couple of areas I already did just to make sure that those metallic paints that I just used, that bronze and that silver, are fully dried so that I don't mix my paints. And then I'm probably going to get a lot of ridicule for dipping my brush straight into the paint jar. I make sure to be very careful about it so I don't mix paints. I've been doing it this way ever since I started doing minis, and actually even when I did model cars, never had a problem with it because I make sure to clean off my brushes very well just so nothing does happen. Alright, now this should be just about dry, so I can come right up around here and do the fine work right here. Come right around this medallion, move along to the other side, paint it up. That looks very nice. Now I do have a little bit of this the inside of this cloth that I can do. Being careful not to get on his skin. And then I can just come right up along the edge here. Finish up these little cloaks here. And we're just about done with his cloak here, so we can move on. I think I'm going to touch up his skin areas that I accidentally hit earlier. Just making sure I get all this good coverage. Little spot I missed right here next to the medallion. Excuse me. That looks very nice. So I'm just going to close this up, clean off my brush, and grab that flat olive again so I can touch up his skin. And then I'll start on his satchels. Here's that olive color. Just make sure it's shaken up. Oh, and my cardboard piece stayed here. Some people leave the cardboard in, some people take it out. I just tend to leave it there. It's just an extra precaution so that it doesn't get into the threads as easily. Now I'm just going to patch up his leg here. And if it is a little bit darker than before, and if it dries dark, that's fine, because it adds just a little bit of depth and color. And I think the other part is right here on his arm. Let's cover that up. And I think that's all the blue from his skin that I accidentally got on him. And that is looking very nice. Oh, that's the other piece, the back of his head. Alright, there we go. Alright, there we go. Press this right back on. Alright, that is looking very nice. Now, I think the bronze was a good choice because I can use it for the buttons on his satchels. So I'm going to grab a couple colors. Actually, first let me grab this flat black that we used earlier, and we will use this to paint his satchel strap, kind of his messenger bag here. And there's a little bit of stripe on this side. So I'll just paint that up real quick. Now this black is a little bit watery, it seems like, but I like the effect it gives. I think it kind of makes it look a little more like leather, which is what I wanted to go for. Originally, like I said, I was going to do a brown leather, but that's going to blend in with this shell, so I'm just going to do it here and make a black leather, which I think is looking very nice and will add to this character. Alright, so now we got that, and actually, not sure how well you can see the detail. There we go. He is wearing a bag of holding. That's what that little guy right on him is. So maybe I will skip this bag for now, and then once I finish up all the other little satchels and component pouches here, I will grab my DMG and look at the coloring on the bag of holding so I can get that accurate. So I'm just gonna close up my black here, clean it off my brush, and grab a couple brown colors for his satchels. And like I said, since he is a wizard, I'm assuming those are component pouches. Fun little detail that they gave him a bag of holding though. I might just use that in my campaign, use that little detail as something that I didn't think about. Alright, so I'm just grabbing a couple colors here, just to give a little bit of variation. You could definitely just do this in 1 or 2 colors, but I think I'm going to use 3 colors. Actually, I'm going to use 2 colors. I'm going to save that other color for another piece later. So first, I'm going to just shake these up, and then I'm going to start with this color here. It is a flat tan. Just gotta get it open real quick. So there's 3 groups of 2 satchels, so I think I'll do one of each color, but I'll make sure to switch up the sides so it doesn't look like a pattern, but there's actually more than that, but that's okay. So I got my flat tan here. I'm just going to start painting. I'm just going to start with this one right here under the bag of holding. And I'm just going to paint each of these pouches for the most part in one solid color, and then I'll come back and do all the buttons in some bronze. Maybe I'll do some silver ones, maybe I'll do some gold ones. We'll see when we get to it. So I'll paint the left one this time. Being very careful around the edges not to get paint on the stuff that I did earlier. Alright, and then here's these two up here. I think I'm not going to paint either of these, but I'm going to paint both of these ones right over here, since there's just a little bit sticking out. And just adds up a little bit of variation, so they're not all too similar. I imagine he just, as he bought these, he just threw them on his belt in no particular order. So that's how we're going to paint them, in no particular order. We're just going to let the paint tell us where to go. And they're looking very nice. Alright, so that's it for my, that's my flat tan. Now the other color might be very similar. We'll see how it shows up. Hopefully there's enough difference just to give a little bit of variation. Again, I will put this color off to the side, so if I want to use it later, I have it there. Just clean that off. And now this other color I have is called Sand, and we'll see how it looks next to the tan. I believe it's going to be just a little bit of a darker color. And I don't worry too much about getting the paint on my fingers. It comes off pretty easily. It's not toxic, so that's okay. Alright, so I'm just gonna come through. Alright, it is just a little bit darker than the flat tan. From a distance it might not be too noticeable, but it is a different color. And I feel like most of these bags would be made out of similar or the same materials anyways, so they would have similar colors. Just maybe some of them are just more sun faded than others. Maybe they're newer or older. I don't know. It just helps tell the story of this mini. And you can imagine it however you would like. And then I'll just paint both of these the same color. Alright, there's all of his component pouches. And just to give those time to dry, I'm going to set this pan off to the side, clean up my brush. Okay, so here's what he's looking like so far. Lots of color and fun. It's not completely finished yet, but I think he's going to be really cool when he's done. Alright, so I'm just going to let those component pouches dry a little bit so I can go back and do the buttons. I'm just going to do all the buttons in the same color And I think I'm just going to, oh, did I accidentally set my bronze back right here. I think I'm just, or my brass, sorry. I'm just going to do them all in a brass color. And I've just been using my small brush for a while since we're getting down to smaller details. I'm just gonna blow on it just a little bit to clean it up and to dry it off a little bit faster. Oh yes, and I just remembered, after I paint all these little buttons, we still do have to do his claws, which we're just going to do in that flat black that we were using earlier. Alright, so I'm just going to go through with my brass and dot it onto all of these little buttons here. It is a little bit difficult to tell, but it does break up the color just a little bit. Alright, and this last button here. Alright, so there's all his buttons. Let's clean off our brush. And we'll grab that flat black to do up his claws real quick. Actually, I'm going to grab a gloss black for his claws. I think that'll look a little bit... Here's a semi-gloss that'll work just as well. Just grab my... And I'll leave a list of all the colors in the comment section. So if you want to use the same colors as I do, okay, you can do that. My semi-gloss is not opening, even with my tool here. So I'm just going to use another flat black again. Oops, I forgot to shake it. Alright, there we go. Alright. Now it looks like this jar is empty. So let's toss that in the trash real quick. Do I have any other blacks over here? I have that semi-gloss, so I'm just going to try and open that real quick. If it takes too long, I'll just cut this section out of the video. Alright, so it's not opening here, but another trick is take a little bit of paint thinner and run it along the edges just to loosen up that paint a little bit. Just go all the way around, and that usually tends to help break the cap loose, along with using the tool. If that doesn't work, another option is to bang the cap gently on the table a couple times and then go back to using this technique. So just using all the techniques together. It started to twist just a little bit there. There it starts to go. So that paint thinner worked pretty nicely. So when I'm done with this video, I'm just going to go and clean up my caps. Hopefully that doesn't happen again. Like I said, it has been a little bit since I used these because we just moved. Alright, so I'm going to just go in and get all his claws, which will be pretty easy because it is all sitting here on the ground. don't look too much like claws right now, but I will fix that when I paint the ground. I just want to make sure to get black on every side of his claw there. I usually, for this mini, I'm going to paint the ground as a, I guess, does he have finger claws? Does not look like it. I'm going to paint this mini with a rocky base, so there'll be a pretty dark gray that we'll be able to cover that black up with pretty easily. And I have used quite a few colors, but again, I'll leave them all in the description if you want to use them, and you don't have to use all the colors that I'm using. So I'm just going to move my mini over to the side for a minute and wipe away some of this dust that it's just the dried up paint that's falling off the caps of my paint when I open them, especially the ones I haven't used in a long time. Okay, so at this point I'm pretty much done. I'm going to go grab my DMG and open up to the page of the bag of holding so we can get that to look realistic to the game. Alright, so I got the DMG and I found a picture of the bag of holding. For the most part, it's colors that I've already used. The red, the teal, the sand, and I'm going to use a little bit of black for some of the details, although it's a darker brown. I'm just going to use a little bit of the black because I think that'll still work pretty well. It's not going to be totally perfectly accurate because, like I said, I'm not too good at the small details, but we will do our best. So I'm just, like I said, most of the colors I have used already. So I'm just going to start off with our sand color for the bulk of the bag. This is kind of the background color. So here's that sand color. Let's see. I'm just going to paint most of the bag in tan, and then we will overlay the other colors. Actually, I'm going to actually try and just paint the parts of the bag. So here's a look at it again. It's a little bit at a difficult angle for me to paint, so when I'm done I will show you up close what it looks like. And again, I'm going to do my best to paint it here. So I'm just going to look and see there's a little bit of difference in details between the mini and the DMG, but that's okay. We will just make it look good. For something like this, it would be nice to have a smaller brush. I do not have one. Hopefully I can get one in the future. Maybe even if I get one, I will come back and do some touch-ups on the bag of holding specifically. Alright, so there's that part, and then I just had to do the bottom part here. And again, I'm using the same sand color that we used earlier. It is okay if I hit some of the other areas, because it will get covered up with other colors. Alright, I got a little bit too much paint on there, so it's covering up some of the details. I'm just going to wipe off my brush and go back over it to wipe off some of that paint to reveal the details again. Alright, and then the bottom of this bag is also going to be in this sand color. And I guess the sides of it will be too. What color are the straps here? Black and red. Okay, I'm just going to paint over all the straps for now, so I can get the background of the bag as well. Get the bottom there. Alright, so that's going to be all for our, there's a little spot there. That's going to be all for the sand color. So I'll just close that up. Hopefully I won't need it again, but I will make sure it's separated from my palette, but still put off to the side away from my other paints. I'll clean off my brush here. And I think the next color I'm going to do is the black, just because there's just a little bit that I need to do. Okay, so now this very small detail, and we'll see how I do add it. This black I'm just using for the bag of holding's eyebrows. Now I did go outside of the scribe lines a little bit, so I'm just going to clean off my brush, and while it's still wet, try and wipe some of that excess away. There we go, that worked pretty well. Okay, I'm just gonna leave it like that. I don't think I'm gonna get too much better. Alright, just wipe off my brush. Doesn't really matter what color I do next. I'm just going to use this flat red that I used earlier on his shell. And this is just going to be some details around the edge and the lips. If I can get the lips, I will do my best to try and do that. It doesn't want to stay focused, so maybe if I just bring it down here a little bit. It's kind of hard to keep it on camera while having it close enough to see the details, so pardon me if it pops off camera every now and then. Gonna try and get this fine little detail here. There we go. Did that better than expected. Now I'm just going to paint in some of these details here. A little bit difficult to do, but again, I'm trying my best. In the end, a lot finer detail than I've ever done on any other mini, so I'll be happy however it turns out. Alright, there we go. It looks like I missed just a tad bit of tan, but that's okay because I'm going to I was going to just fill that in solid tan just to make it easier, but I'm going to stick with the picture and color it in with a teal color or a light blue. Now I need that red to dry so my colors don't mix, but this next color I'm using is going to be a flat sky blue. And I'm just going to, there it is, just get my tool to open this. Alright, it's not coming open, so I'm going to do my little painting trick. This helps loosen up some of the paint that might have accidentally dried up in there. Alright. It's okay, it's just giving this red paint time to dry. Alright. So now I don't have a smaller brush like I said before, so I'm going to try really hard to make this look nice. There's these little patches under the eyes that will get done in the blue. And actually it does look very nice with the tan underneath it. It looks a little bit darker just like it does in the picture. Alright, now just a couple more details along the edges. These little triangles should also be blue. Now I'm not sure how well it's going to cover up the red, but we will try. Okay, so it's not covering up the red too much. That's okay. I will just dry that off real quick and paint the whole border in red. Because we still got those details and it still looks very nice. So I don't think it will affect the quality too much. Because like I said, it's for gameplay. So you're not going to be paying too much attention to the details. There we go, and it does look very nice. I just got a little bit on the bottom of the bag, so I'm going to grab my sand color and fix that up. And I'm going to look at the picture real quick. That tassel is kind of a leather color with some red on the end. I'm going to go off a little bit. I'm not going to paint it that color, because I think that'll be too much red in this little area here, since I had to do the border in red. So I think instead I'm going to do a nice light lavender color, and I think that will look very nice with these other colors. You can use the red if you want to. Oh, and also hose the tassel attached with a little black piece of leather, so I can paint that piece black. Clean off my brush, grab my black color, dab it on right along there. that's it for the black. And yes, I'm adding yet another color to the palette, but I think in the end it will be worth it. So this is gloss purple. It's a very light purple, kind of a lavender color. I'm going to show you on the screen here in a second once I get it open. Alright, so here you go, and here's that top piece. It's a very light kind of lavender color. It's a little bit darker on the screen. I think that looks very nice. Now, if you have a smaller brush, you can definitely paint all the triangles and paint this kind of a leathery red if you would like, but I think that this lavender purple looks very nice on the tassel. Now that the bag of holding is done, I will just focus it in so you can see it a little bit better. So there is the bag of holding. It's pretty nice. So now we just have a couple more things to paint. And we do have this flame here. And normally I imagine D&D fire as, well, it depends. Magical fire I imagine as blue. But there's quite a lot of blue on here, so I think I'm going to actually use the bright orange that I use on his front panel here. And I think going over the clear, it'll look very nice. And it'll, again, just help add a little bit of detail to this mini. Alright, so we got the orange here. And that is looking very nice already. This flame is actually not connected to his thumb at all, which is pretty cool. Looks like it's just attached to his fingers here. So I'm able to get all the way around this flame and just make it look really nice. I did get a little bit of orange on his hand, so I'll go back and fix that up. And then after we finish the flame, we just have to paint his staff and the ground, and then we will be finished. Finally finished. What, we are an hour and 20 minutes in. If you made it this far, thanks for sticking around. I definitely don't expect everyone to watch the entire video. Even if you just like skip through it, watch some parts for a little bit, just skip around, go to the end, see the final product, it's fine with me. As long as you like and subscribe, doesn't bother me too much. Alright. So I'm done with the orange now. We have quite the collection of colors over here. Alright, and I We'll grab that flat olive green again. Where is it? Here it is. Maybe we'll just, oops. We'll just go and patch up his fingers real quick. This part does not have orange on it, but I seem to have missed it. So we'll just paint that part real quick. Grab the inside of his thumb. Alright, and we got that all patched up. Now the final part of the mini himself is going to be painting his staff, or his, I'm imagining it is his arcane focus. So I'm just going, now this is also a gloss brown, but it is a different bottle. I have learned that sometimes they act a little bit weird. So this gloss brown, as opposed to my other one, tends to go on a little bit more watery, but I use that to my advantage to make some cool effects, and I think it'll look really nice for this staff here. Just gotta get it open here. It does not seem to want to open, so I'm just gonna go and get a little more paint. If it doesn't work, like I said, I'll just lightly tap it on the table. I will either cut that part out or just mute it if that has to happen, so it's not destroying your ears, especially for anyone who has headphones in. Alright, so I'm just going to tap it on the table a little bit. Actually, first I'm just going to go around the edge with a knife, being very careful so I don't cut myself. Try and hold it in a way you can cut away from yourself. And I did hear a little bit of paint cracking, so I might have loosened it up just enough. Alright, it's still not coming open, so I'm just going to pause the video and bang it on the table a couple times. Alright, after banging it just a couple times, I managed to get it open. So now we're just going to go through and paint up his staff. I'm not sure how well you can see it, but it's kind of going on a little bit kind of watery, and that's what I was expecting. I think it kind of helps make it look a little bit, it makes it a little bit lighter, and I think it makes a little bit more of a realistic wood effect. It's how I paint most of the staffs, or the wooden staffs anyways, on the minis that I do. I've painted actually I think all the minis that I painted that had any type of wooden staff, I used this color. Just I really like how it looks. Didn't get paint on the rest of them, so that's good. And look, we're almost done. We'll be able to just do some of the finishing touches. Some of my finishing touches I do off screen, which mostly that includes putting a clear coat on it and gluing it to its base. The glue I use for the base, I'll show it on screen in a moment, but you can get it at most any crafting store that sells models. I tend to get my stuff at Michael's. Again, if it sells models, it'll most likely have it. It's just a little blue tube that is usually hanging right above the paints. So when I'm done with this, and I'll just let it dry a little bit, and I'll show you the paint that I usually use, or the glue I mean. I'll just have to go grab it from my box real quick, but that's no big deal. Alright, so there's the staff. Painted up, looks pretty realistic. Oh, just a little bit of brown there. I'm gonna clean off my brush. Alright, we'll put that off to the side. Again, the glue that I use is also Tester's brand. Here is this little blue tube. It is Tester's brand. It's non-toxic. This has this little cap on it. It just pulls on and off, so you can. And that's what I use. It is made for plastic, so it works pretty well. So now that the mini is all finished, I'm just going to paint the base in a nice dark gray color, and I just have this color called gray, which I think will look pretty nice for, like I said, I want to make it look kind of like rocks. Just make sure it's shaken up. Alright. Now if I cover up his toes a little bit, that'll be okay. But I'm going to try and go around his toes. Just start off going around the staff here. And adding just a little bit of detail makes it look so much better already. Just get in between his toenails here. Some spots when you're doing the base are hard to see a little bit because of the shadows. And just do your best. It doesn't have to be perfect. Like I said, when you're playing with them on a board, you're not going to be paying too close of attention to the details anyways. Coming on the back side of his leg here. Now I'll come over here to these toenails. Rock here, and it kind of has a little divot in here. Depending on the mini, I add more detail to the base than just painting as a rock. But I imagine that he has walked up to the cliffside and is looking over the ocean. Because again, in my campaign, they live on a little island. The island is inhabited by only turtles and lizard folk. But mostly turtles. Lizard folk live on the other island just across the way, for the most part. So, and their city is, or I guess their village, or I'll say village, is pretty close to the ocean, so they would have easy access to the water. So there's the base all finished up there, and that'll do it for painting the mini. I will put on a clear coat off screen, and I will glue it to the base off screen, and then when I do all that, I will come back and show you the final product nice and up close. Alright guys, so I put a clear coat on him and I glued him onto his base, and this is what he looks like now. Got a lot of color. I think it looks really good. I think I sprayed the clear coat a little bit too close because you see some white marks on his shell, but I like how that looks, so I'm just going to keep it like that. And here's the other side of him with the little bag of holding there. Alright, thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.